everyone, my name is Jenna, but you guys can call me Jen. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to a little recommendation video. Actually, I shouldn't call it little. I have a lot of books to talk about today, my friends. I put up a poll on my Instagram story asking you guys what you wanted to see from me, which is great because I now have videos lined up in my brain, at least, for the next couple weeks, which is fantastic. But this one won out with votes, and it is a disability recommendation video, which I'm really glad that it won out because I was low-key hoping it would be this one. July is Disability Pride Month, and because we're nearing the end of July, I thought I'd give you some recommendations so that you can read all year round, my friends. We should be reading diversely all year round. So without further ado, let's get into it. So I've tried to sort these in a special kind of way. I started first with okay, so the main character is disabled. And then I was like, all right, we need to separate sci-fi and fantasy. And then I was like, but this whole stack here has side characters that are disabled. And then I was like, what about my younger readers? So is there a rhyme or reason to this video? No, we're just gonna get into it. All right, so let's start with the young adult reads. Why not? We'll start there. First and foremost, of course, Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I am bringing this up because it not only has a cane user, so a physical disability with Kaz Brecker, it has multiple neurodivergent characters with Jesper and with Wylan. I do believe both of those can be considered neurodivergent in very different ways. If you've not read Six of Crows, this is a young adult novel about a heist, about a group of people who come together and form a heist. It's got the Crows, who are a band of, they're like a band of kids, but they're older, and Kaz Brecker kind of runs everything. I don't think I've ever had to describe Six of Crows before. But yes, Six of Crows is always a good place to go. Up next, we have Aidan Thomas's The Sunbearer Trials, which is a fantastic young adult novel that kind of mixes the readability of a Rick Riordan book with the myth and that kind of taste of dealing with demigods and godly parents and stuff like that. Not in the same way as Percy Jackson, but mythologically speaking, the same. It's not Greek mythology though. I should clarify that. It kind of has a little bit of a Hunger Games-esque trial for gosh, it's been so long since I've read this. It's got a trial in it as well. You could kind of compare it to the Hunger Games because it is kind of deadly stakes, but I'm tired of things being compared to the Hunger Games, so I'll say it just has a trial. It's got a trial in it, and we know we love trial books, but it also has a character who is deaf in here as well. So we have a hard of hearing deaf character. Next, we have a book that I read recently, which is To Shape a Dragon's Breath by Monoquill Blackgoose. This is an Indigenous school set book. So it's about Anacus, who finds a dragon egg, and she ends up going to a dragon academy because in this world, if you don't register your dragon and go to Dragon Academy, it you could be put down, and also your dragon could be put down in those kind of ways. But in here, we have an autistic character who gets a lot of hate from his mother and from the community at large, but most definitely from his mother, most on page from his mother. His mother's awful, but is accepted by his friends in this, which I think is so lovely. He is not quite nonverbal, but he prefers to not speak to communicate. It is easier for him to do that. And I adore him with every ounce of my being. He is such a sweet bean, and I hope he's just perfectly happy throughout the rest of these books because I love him so much. Then, of course, I'm going to talk about Iron Widow by Xuan Jie Zhao. This is about, I think this is a retelling of Wu Zetian's reign. Wu Zetian is a figure from history. I can't quite remember the exact specifics, but it's about Zetian, who becomes essentially a pilot for these interesting mechas and stuff. But this is a very feral, want to take down the institutions around you kind of book, and it's absolutely fantastic. Our main character, Zetian, is physically disabled. She uses mobility aids and cannot walk because her feet have been so terribly mutilated, which is connected to history and familial abuse, so do watch out for that. This is great. There's also polyamory in this, which we love. That's how you do a proper love triangle. Last, for my YA reads, we have one that's not fantasy, but historical, and a gender-bent rewriting, and that is One for All by Lily Leinoff. And this is a gender-bent rewriting of The Three Musketeers with our main character who has POTS. Really enjoyed this when I read it. I love the representation in here of our main character who has POTS, and I love the found family and the girl friendship that is created in here through the Three Musketeers. It's fantastic, and I highly recommend this. My floor is not covered in YA books. But while we're here, let's talk about middle grade. So I gotta talk about Rick Riordan right off the top because my guy includes various disabilities in all the books that he has written. I think most popular, of course, is Percy Jackson books with neurodivergency, which is great. We love an ADHD king in Percy, love it. But I also wanted to talk about two of his other books that aren't necessarily as talked about on the internet, specifically Daughter of the Deep, which is one of his new, I think it's not his newest because that is The Sun and the Star, but this is his newest non-Percy world middle grade, which follows a like retelling of the 1,000 Leagues Under Beneath the Sea or something. I can't remember what that's called, but this is great. It's a fun little sci-fi. It's a fun like under the sea romp, but it also has an autistic side character who is just, again, the sweetest of beans. I love her so much. I highly recommend it. I also wanted to bring up Magnus Chase because there is a side character in here who is also, I can't remember if he's deaf or just mute, because they communicate via sign language. I can't quite remember because it's been a long time since I've read Magnus Chase, but one of the characters near Hearth uses sign language to communicate. So I can't remember if he is deaf or mute. I'm gonna clarify on the screen. I'm gonna do my Googling and I will clarify on the screen, but yes. Then I also have this other little middle grade. I'm sure there's more on my shelves, but it's just been so long since I've read any middle grade. There's this one here that has a character with depressive tendencies but anxiety, and she's working through it, and that is Some Kind of Happiness by Claire Legrand. And this is one of my favorite middle grades I have ever read. The representation of an anxiety-ridden young brain and one that is also dealing with depression as well, it was exceptional. And I think this is something that I would have loved having as a kid because it would have explained a lot of what happened in my own brain. But yes, Some Kind of Happiness by Claire Legrand. Okay, so let's go into the side characters. These are the ones that have side characters with varying disabilities. But yes, okay, so A Master of Gin by P. Djeli Clark is the first one here, and we have, hello friends, I do apologize for the sound of my dishwasher over there, but I wanted to clarify something. I had labeled this as neurodivergent, and I am incorrect. A Master of Gin, our main character, so it should be in the main character category. My bad. It's been a hot 60 seconds since I've read this book. Our main character, Fatma, is a cane user, so it's a physical disability. And I don't know, I must have read my cop-out sheet wrong when I was going through it, checking for disabilities, but yes, Master of Gin has a cane user. This book is also just fantastic. This follows Fatma in a like magical otherworld Cairo, as she's part of like a magical bureau, essentially solving crimes. And in here, there is a mass murder at the beginning that she's trying to unravel, and it is great. I really enjoyed this. I think P. Djeli Clark has some of the best writing ever, and his novellas are amazing as well. Highly recommend. And there's a lot of novellas in this universe, the Dead Gin universe. I love it so much. Then we also have City of Dusk by Tara Sim. This one has a character in here, not necessarily a main character, because I would argue that the main character in here is Tasia. Tasia is definitely the main character of this, but one of the main POVs deals with addiction in here, and I think it's really interestingly handled in this book, for sure, especially because of the ways that it's tied to the character's magic. I'm really intrigued to see where this series goes. I haven't heard about the release of the second one yet, but I'm intrigued and we'll pick it up when I get to it. But yes, The City of Dusk follows essentially a group of really powerful kids of powerful families, I'll say. And they're kind of, are they the heirs of the families? I think most of them are, and each one of them deal with a different branch of magic and their abilities. And so something's going on with the magic in this world, and there's a big event coming up, and it's kind of following them as they're getting ready for it and dealing with the consequences of what's going on in this world. It's great. I really enjoyed it as I was reading it, but yes, there's a lot of stuff going on in here. I think it dabbles in like portal magic too, a lot. I really enjoyed this fantasy last year when I read it. Then I'm gonna also talk about one of the newer fantasies that has been very popular on the internet, which is The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty. In here we have a character who has a physical disability. One of my favorite things about fan families is when they're incredibly diverse and you see so many different identities all come together and all be loved. That's one of my favorite things about this book, is the found family at the center of it, and it's just fantastic. There is a physically disabled character in here. Up next we have The Final Strife by Sara El-Arifi, sorry. This is the first in a fantasy trilogy, a sapphic fantasy trilogy, that has a people in it, an entire grouping of people that have been so oppressed by the government that they live under that they have been erased of the ability to talk. They are physically disabled because they have no hands, and of course they are mute because they are forcibly mutilated by the removal of their tongue. So an entire group of people, but we also have a character in here, a pretty prominent character who is of these people. Oh, this is another trial book. Oh, I didn't tell you what Amina El-Sarafi is about. Oops. Amina El-Sarafi is about a mother who has retired but gets called back to the sea to help a grieving grandmother retrieve a kidnapped granddaughter. A lot of shenanigans. The final strife is about our main character. I believe her name is Scylla. In this world, there are different colors of blood, and what you bleed means that you have specific powers and that with things you can do. And she was stolen at birth from the highest caste, raised in the middle caste to be a warrior and to enter into these trials to become the next leader of this kingdom country, essentially. Book again, trial book. But it is also about how Scylla, because she is of the lower caste, she doesn't enter into the competition, but the girl who is the daughter of the current leader, who is not of the highest caste because she bleeds blue instead of red like you're supposed to, she enters with the help of Scylla helping her, and it's also sapphic. So, fun! That's a terrible description, but am I a booktuber human? Can I describe things ever? That's the good question of the day. I'm gonna talk about my favorite trilogy of all time, the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. Oh, I love this book so much. So I don't even know if I can explain what these books are about to you. What's the easiest way I could explain it? So in this world, the world itself, the earth, is a little broken, you know? Hence the name of the Broken Earth trilogy. Every so often, it puts itself into what is called the 5th season, which means it is breaking apart. Society and civilizations are destroyed due to natural elements. The earth is super mad and it's trying to kill everything on it, essentially. In here, there are also people who have the power to control the earth and help subdue these things or cause them. They're called origins. So this book specifically starts with a mother who has just come home to her dead son, and she then sets off trying to find her husband and her thus kind of kidnapped daughter because he took her with and didn't tell her where they were going. And it sets off a huge adventure. But one of the people that she meets in here, our main character, it's a you. What is her name? She has a name. She's got multiple names. What am I saying? Esun. That's her name. In my head, it's just a U because it's a U POV. But Esun goes on a really intense adventure in here to try find her daughter, of course, and to discover some of the secrets that are abounding. A lot happens. But one of the characters that she meets in here is physically disabled. One thing that you know about N.K. Jemisin is that when she writes books that are incredibly diverse. They include many different sexualities and identities and different disabilities as well. And I think that's absolutely wonderful. It makes her books come alive. It makes them feel so real, even in a situation where the world itself is so magical and unreal to us. I think N.K. Jemisin, that's why she's one of my favorite authors of all time. I mean, she wrote my favorite trilogy of all time, which is this. Last, for the side characters, I'm gonna talk about T.L. Huchu's The Library of the Dead. In here we have a wheelchair user, and she's so fun. She's like becomes kind of the sidekick to our main character, Ropa, as Ropa's like figuring out these crimes and stuff. I have yet to read the second book, but I really hope she plays a bigger role in the second book because we only meet her in this one, and she kind of plays a role in one of the final like chases in a way. I really enjoy her. I can't remember her name though. Why? Because my brain hates me. Her name is Priya, and she's so great. And also potentially Sapphic? Put a pin in that. I'll come back to you when I've read the second one to confirm. So those are all books with side characters that have disabilities. Now, let's dive into my main character ones. There are also, I was looking at my Copile spreadsheet, there are so many books that have side characters or like background characters with disabilities. These are ones that I picked because I actually really do enjoy them and I do recommend them. I could talk about this all day. There are so many kinds of books, but I also want to know your favorite books, specifically with main characters with disabilities, because I am lacking on that. Love getting a phone call in the middle of a video and having to reset up everything. Okay, hopefully This is a similar angle. This is fine. Okay, what were we talking about? We're gonna dive into our main characters with disabilities. I am gonna talk about 2 books first that I do not have currently with me. One of them I do not own, and one of them I've lent to a friend to read. The one that I lent to a friend is Seven Devils by Elizabeth May and Laura Lamb. This is one of my favorite sci-fi books I've ever read. The duology is one of my favorite duologies that I've ever read. It's just so good. This is the epitome of be gay, do crime, and love each other. It's so good. Found family. Amazing. So we have multiple disabilities in here as well. We have one for sure autistic neurodivergent character and one for sure physical amputee. But there is rampant PTSD and other disabilities in pretty much every character. We have anxiety, we have PTSD, as I said. We have the autistic little girl who's like learning about her disability and her abilities as well that she can do to help the team because she feels so unhelpful. Like she feels like she can't do anything because she's little and she's like little physically and also in age. She's like a teenager when everyone else around her is an adult or like in their 20s. I love Seven Devils so much. The first book follows a duo. It has 2 main POVs. I want to say, I think there's other POVs as well. I cannot remember their names because my memory is awful. But we got 2 POVs. One of them is the physically disabled one because of something that the other one did. They hate each other. Also, the other one is a secret princess of the Empire, and she's like undercover in this revolutionary group of people. And so they're coming together to do this job together. It's a heist kind of vibe, and they end up also kind of just adopting these 3 people who are trying to run away from the Empire as well. All of these women are all together in this ship trying to do this job. And they also end up bringing another member on later on as well. And they got like adjacent members and stuff. They call themselves the Seven Devils by the end of the book. And it's just phenomenal. It's phenomenal. I want everyone to read this sci-fi, please. And it's such a good bridge between young adult sci-fi or young adult reads and going into more adult reads because it is an adult sci-fi, but it does read with the readability and the like just compulsive amazingness of a really good YA with like the angst. And well, there's not really that much angst, but just like the peril and the stakes and the action-packedness of it. It reads like a good branch between the 2. Other than this, we also have Bone Houses by Emily Lloyd Jones. This is a YA fantasy that I didn't mention before with the other ones. I forgot it was YA, but it's fine. One of our main characters is a map maker, and he has chronic pain in his shoulder and always has. And it's fantastic representation because he has good days and he has absolutely terrible days on this adventure with our main character. I cannot remember her name because of course I can't remember names of characters ever. That should be the title of this video. Can Jenna remember names? No. As they're going on a little adventure into an uncharted land together to figure out the mystery of these bone houses, kind of like these zombies, these reanimated corpses that are coming back and attacking the town that our main character lives in with her family, and who this cartographer comes to essentially because he wants to then go chart some of this world that is yet uncharted because Mapmaker. Yeah, that is a fantastic book and one of my favorite YAs that I've read. It's got horror elements, it's got cozy elements because of the fairy tale nature of it and the descriptions to me. It was fabulous and I need to own a copy. I need to get a copy in my hands one day. Anyways, okay, let's just start this off with this trilogy. This is not a trilogy. This is a series. Where is my brain? I'm holding 3 of the 4 books because the 4th book is yet to be released, but each one of these books has a character with a disability of some kind. So in Gideon the Ninth, the first one, this is a Lock Tomb series by Tamsin Muir, by the way. I didn't say that. Gideon the Ninth has a character with a chronic illness. It also has neurodivergent characters as well. But Harrow the Ninth is where we really get that neurodivergency in here because we have someone who is going through a mental break. Harrow herself. And I guess you could also say there's characters with physical disabilities in here, but could you? Because Harrow kind of heals one of them when her arm stops functioning. Necromancy. What a fun magic system. Harrow with her neurodivergent trauma, if you will. Sometimes when I say neurodivergent, all the time when I say neurodivergent, I mean like the big blanket of like anxiety, PTSD, depression, autism, ADHD, all of it, okay? This one specifically deals with the trauma that Harrow's going through, and it is around a mental break, but it is mental health situated, a mental disability, if you will. And Nona the Ninth, we have Nona, our main character as well. She has a information processing disorder of some kind. Like, she cannot learn specific new things, but she can learn other new things. And she's just the sweetest being of all time, and she's very autistic coded. So we love her. I love Nona with all my heart. But yes, definitely the Locked Tomb series. I adore this series. You guys know this is one of my favorite series of all time. I cannot wait until Electa the Ninth is released. Has anyone heard any news about Electa the Ninth? Because I haven't, and I'm getting nervous. I thought we were getting Electa this year. I looked on Goodreads. Apparently we're not. I'm so mad about it. I was so ready to have like my reread of this for this fall. Maybe I will just do that anyways without Electa waiting for me, but sad. Okay, let's talk about the 3 sci-fis that I have. We have Bluebird by Cécile Pierlot. One of our POVs is a double amputee, and also there is rampant PTSD in here as well. Multiple disabilities. Our Bluebird is about, I didn't tell you what Gideon the Ninth was about. How do I even do that? The Locked Tomb series is whack. That's all you really need to know. Bluebird by Cécile Pierlot is a lesbian gunslingers in space with space lesbian librarians. It's amazing. I gotta reread this because it follows Rig and Ginka. That's her name. Oh my god. Rig and Ginka. Ginka is our disabled character. And Rig is kind of a thief and an outlaw. She's the gunslinger, and she has a ship called the Bluebird, hence the name of the book. She's trying to rescue her sister from one of the 3 factions? Sure, we'll call it factions of this world. There is Ascetic, Ossuary, and Pyrite. And Pyrite has Rig's sister, so she gotta save him. And then Genka comes along because Genka's trying to run away from one of these factions for the stuff that it did to her, hence her disability. But yes, Genka, so cool. Her prosthetics are some of my favorite bits of technology in this book. So fun. Then we also have The First Sister by Lyndon A. Lewis. Our main character, the first sister, is disabled as well. She is, I wrote down physically disabled in my cop-out sheet because she has been made to be unable to speak. Yeah, I think that's how I'll describe it. She's mute, but she has been made mute, much like in the final Strife, which I put back on my shelves and you can't see because it's kind of blurry. Our first sister, she's mute because she's been made unable to speak due to something. So I want to call her physically disabled. She's also mute because of these things. There's also like neurodivergency coded stuff in here, but it's not on page specific. I mean, is it on page specific in any of the books that I talked about today? No. It feels coded that way though, and it's very clear, which I think just goes hand in hand for reading diversely and amazingly. But yes, The First Sister is fantastic. It is a sci-fi that follows 2 sides of a war, following the first sister on one side, who is a holy figure sex worker on one side. That's how I'll describe her. As she's trying to get information from a captain that her like religious sect believes is a traitor to the mother, who is the like big symbol, if you will. Because of course we have the mother, we have the aunties, and we have the sisters, of course. And then we follow the other side, which follows one voice character, Leto, as they are trying to find their old partner who has who is missing in action. And we also have another POV from that missing in action character through recordings sent to Leto. Very fun, very cool. The way that this came together, I was screaming. I loved it so much. It was so much fun. But yes, First Sister. Okay, the last sci-fi I'm going to talk about today is James S.A. Corey's Leviathan Wakes. I could also talk about Caliban's War, which is book number 2. In these 2 books, you know what, I'll just grab it, it's fine. In these 2 books, we have characters with rampant PTSD that is causing them so many issues. And here we have Detective Miller, who has PTSD. And we also have a main character, Jim Holden. Yep, he has low-key PTSD that affects him in Caliban's War. But there is a character in Caliban's War that I cannot remember the name of. Is it Billy? Bobby, not Billy. Bobby, who also has rampant PTSD and anxiety due to an event at the beginning of this book. So yes, both of these work as well. These are the first 2 books in the Expanse series by James S.A. Corey, who is an author duo. It's a pseudonym for an author duo. I don't even know how to describe these. The first one follows, I mean, they're both kind of like space mystery thriller vibes. Thriller? This one kind of more thrillery than this one. But yeah, space mystery vibes, follows different characters as a big issue is happening that's introduced in the first book. Yeah, we'll describe it as that. It's very good. I really enjoy that series so far. I've only read the first 2 books, but I've really enjoyed it so far. All right, last bit. Fantasy. I only have 3 to talk about, so don't worry, we're nearing the end of this video. First up, we have Half a King by Joe Abercrombie. This has a main character with a physical disability. We have Yarvi, Prince Yarvi, who has does he have a missing arm or just a unusable arm? I think it's unusable. I think it's still there, but it's just rendered unusable at birth. He was just born with a birth defect in his hand, and thus is unable to do many of the princely and manly things considered that by this kingdom, like learning how to wield a weapon. He's physically weak, all this kind of stuff. He's been made physically weak because of the fact that people are like, oh, he's disabled, he can't do anything, thus he just must be a scholar, and so has never been able or allowed to do the things that his brother is doing. At the beginning of this book, he becomes king because both his brother and his father are murdered. Fun. It is that, him going on this like revenge quest to, what is the word? There's a word for it. And it's gonna drive me bananas and I can't think of it, but he goes on this quest to his father and his brother. In doing this, he gets caught. He becomes enslaved to this trader of some kind, trader with a D, and ends up making a band of friends there, kind of a thing. And that is the first. This is the first of a trilogy. Main character, disabled. Next, we have A Second Story by Me by J.A. Collignan. Our main character, Ari, has anxiety. A Second Story is a cozy fantasy, queer cozy fantasy by yours truly. You guys know all about it. If you don't, hi, welcome to my channel. I wrote this cozy fantasy. Book 2 is coming out October. That one also has a neurodivergent main character as well. Kier, neurodivergent, sweetheart. Anyways, yes. As I said, queer cozy fantasy. It is set by the sea, perfect for summertime, where 2 adventurers, Ari and Finn, decide to retire from their life of adventuring and buy a bookstore together, renovate it, and live their lives in Arrowmount from there on. Yes, anxiety rep. Wonderful. And last but not least, we have The City of Lies by Sam Hawke. Both of our main characters in here, brother and sister, Kalina and Joven, are disabled in some way. I believe I read online, I think I mentioned this book before in either a TikTok or a video where I was talking about books with disabled characters. And I said that Joven was neurodivergent on the autism spectrum. And I saw online somewhere that people are saying that he has OCD, which I did not catch. I thought my homeboy was just a little autistic and just ridden with anxiety. So it's not stated on page what he has. He just is neurodivergent in some kind of way. Does he have OCD? Yes, he is ritualistic in his natures, in his anxieties. He's also a little autistic with just a lot of his tendencies, but he's fantastic. He is such a cool character, and this book is fantastic because it takes both of these characters, him and his sister, and shows how cunning they are and how you can win wars and rebellion and keep the people you love safe by using methods other than just wielding a sword. You know, in like traditional fantasies. I really like this for that. But yeah, his sister Kalina has a chronic illness that affects her lungs and thus affects some of her ability to do really active things. Like in the second book, which I'm currently reading, she mentions that she has trouble dancing. This follows these 2 siblings as they are trying to uncover a poisoning plot as war comes to their city undetected. It's great. It's so good. It's so cool to see from the other side of like royalty, not from the commoners of the people of the kingdom, but from within the royal palace, but not from the point of view of the royal people, right? It's from Joven, who is he has a name. There is a title to what he does. I can't remember what it is. I've called him the poisoner, but he's not. He's the opposite of a poisoner. He knows poisons and can detect poisons. He's a poison detector, if you will. He is trained for this under their uncle who dies at the beginning of this, and they are essentially the protectors of the chancellor. So not necessarily the prince, but the chancellor, who is also a very, very high up figure in this world. Joven and Kalina and the chancellor's heir, Tane, end up being dropped into these roles at the death of the uncle and the chancellor because of this poison that doesn't have an antidote that Joven knows. Like, it's an undetectable poison kind of a thing. Like, he cannot figure it out. And he spends a lot of this book trying to figure it out and trying to figure out who's poisoned people, essentially. Things ensue from there. But sometimes I film videos and I get to the end of it and I'm like, wow, I can't describe books at all. Why am I in this field? I just love talking about books so much. I'm just terrible at describing them. I should really write down a one-line description of each book before I start talking about them, because holy man, it would save me so much time. Anyways, my friends, that is it from me today. I really hope you enjoyed. I hope you are having a great time watching me flounder through this. And I hope you've expanded your TBR, because that is what I am here for. What I want you guys to do now, as I mentioned earlier, I would love to have recommendations from you guys on books with disabled characters. Whether that is a disabled main character, which I would really, 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 really love you to mention down below, because I need to expand my repertoire of those books. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you are, and I will catch you in another video very soon. Stay kind and keep on reading.